How's it going, truth seekers, skeptics, and anyone else who may be listening? This is Designated X, a channel dedicated to bringing the very best of the unexplained. I'm back again with an odd, unexplained, and hair-raising account of the unnatural. Before I start though, if you could please hit that like and subscribe button and share this post on social media or with any like-minded individuals, it sure would help a lot and I'd definitely appreciate it. Thank you all. Alright, let's get going.
Are you familiar with the so-called X-Files?
I believe they have to do with unexplained phenomena.
When convention and science offer us no answers, might we not finally turn to the fantastic as a plausibility?
Logically, I would have to say no.
This story is passed down through relatives that did not openly talk about it much due to the way these Native Americans revered Sasquatch and felt guilty about killing one. They especially felt guilty because this Sasquatch was believed to be more human than even the average one. The Salish Indians who recount the story made this comment about the particular wild man. Askanicum is a word for someone born not of a direct human, but of Sasquatch kind. This might seem like a cruel joke, something to call a human with developmental disabilities, etc., but the honest-to-God truth may be too hard to swallow. That Sasquatch have interbred with women in the past, and the existence of these offspring has been swept under the rug and kept hidden. During the 60s, it was rumored that one of the town bishops of the local church, likely a Jesuit, had taken in a freak of some sort. This freak was not human, but not animal enough to be rejected by the Jesuit, so the Jesuit was keeping him in the basement and feeding him. The only reason knowledge of this exists is because people would hear things at the church, inhuman things. If you ask me, the Jesuits did not want this thing to be out and about. This sounds somewhat unbelievable, but keep in mind that the reason the men who shot the hairy men went a little insane was because they killed a human. A giant, ridiculously muscular human covered in hair, but still a human. Too human to parade about town in the back of a pickup truck, if you know what I mean. The Sasquatch, or Skanicum, of this story had become particularly bold about raiding the homes when people were away and stealing their food. The account starts when the wild man was having his way, free rein, getting bold. He started to break into houses during the middle of the day. Children would see him and flip out. Police were called. Meetings were held. The town was becoming more and more shaken up by the presence of this unknown intruder. This was when something incredible happened to the particular family who was favorited by the hairy man. They had become so lax and accepting of this hairy man's presence that one night, while standing on the porch, the father was yanked off by his feet in full view of the entire family. They screamed and huddled together and cried while whatever it was fought with the dad on the porch. The sounds of fighting and screaming and knowing that your father was powerless against whatever it was must have been unspeakably traumatic for the kids. They are now grown, like myself, and I wonder to this day how much it affected their lives. The father was gone for days. Whatever it was that had taken him had carried him off into the night after the struggle on the porch. There was blood on the grass, and the family grabbed neighbors and men of the community to help recover their father. The men got together and followed the signs and trails left by whatever it was, drops of blood and signs of something large passing through. They followed this trail all the way to the very creek which my uncle had spotted a Sasquatch at. They followed this creek all night. When the men returned the next day, they didn't speak a word. A whole group of grown men, and not one of them was willing to speak about what happened. They had, however, found my father. They recovered him. He was beaten black and blue over the entirety of his body. Broken ribs, arms, and legs. The father was in shock, incoherent, and unable to speak a word. One of my uncles had gone to see the man and his family in the hospital. There was a fair amount of goodwill being shown to the family that went through this experience. Nobody knew what happened, only that the father was close to death and the family was shaken up. So my uncle stopped by to pay his respects and saw for himself the father lying in the hospital, eyes bulging wide, trembling constantly. This man had been beaten badly, but something else was wrong with him. He was traumatized. He died that night, and to this day, nobody knows what grabbed him or what exactly happened to him. To this day, the men who went on the recovery mission to save him have kept the stories to themselves. Only a select circle, including my father, remembers the incident. Almost nobody talks about it. I have shared it with you for whatever it's worth. Those men fought what it was that took that father. They found the hairy man, and they killed it. They shot it to death with high-powered rifles and buried the body. The men who did it felt incredibly guilty. Sasquatch is a matter of fact here, and the older generations told us to avoid them and leave them alone because they are human beings. They are not animals, and they are not magic. They can most certainly be monsters, and this is one story that corroborates that. But the hairy man, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you wish to call it, is so human-like that even here, when a group of men killed one, they were so traumatized by the experience that they felt guilty of murder. Back in the 70s, there was no desire to be rich and famous for killing a Bigfoot. There was no desire to even talk about Bigfoot. These kind of things were dirty little secrets, especially on reservations. Yet there were plenty of white kids bumping into Bigfoot and getting into the newspapers. But the Indian community is tight-lipped about this, even to this day. Can you imagine? This is just a great reminder that we hear lots of tales about benevolent Bigfoot. We hear all these researchers, scientists always exclaiming how badly they want to come across one. But I think this report, this encounter, especially since it comes from Native Americans, is just a great lesson to keep in mind. These things do seem to be very human-like, and perhaps we're connected on the family evolutionary tree at some point. I don't know, and I think that's part of it. No one really knows, and everyone wants to find out. But the other side of it is, even if they are part human, that they are also part animal, in the sense that if you invade their territory, if you back them into a corner, if you get too comfortable around them, as this family did, they can still lash out, act in ways unexpected, just as a wild animal would. This is just a crazy report. I'm sure the whole family was traumatized by the event. And you can't, what do you tell people that aren't, Indians on the reservation? You can't really tell anyone, oh, Sasquatch kidnapped and killed my father. They'll think you're crazy. Just a real eye-opening encounter. As always, though, give me your opinion in the comments section below. If you have an account or personal encounter of anything odd and unexplained, whether it be ghostly visitors, a sinister stranger, cryptid or unknown entity encounters, demonic or angelic visitation, extraterrestrial contact, or anything else unexplained, feel free to contact me with your account by sending an email to designatedxshow@gmail.com. See you in the next one. Peace.
Bago,